6 months. That's how long it took Japan to conquer an area larger than the continental United States. December 1941 to June 1942. In half a year, Japan seized the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, Burma, the Dutch East Indies, and dozens of Pacific islands. 50 million people, millions of square miles, the richest resource zones in Asia, all gone. While America was still pulling bodies from Pearl Harbor, Japan was building the largest empire in their history. And here's what nobody talks about: they almost got away with it. If Japan had stopped in June 1942, consolidated their gains, and dug in, America might never have gotten it all back. The cost would have been too high, the distances too vast, the defenses too strong. But Japan didn't stop. They kept pushing, kept attacking. Kept expanding until they overextended so badly that their entire empire collapsed. This is the story of Japan's lightning conquest. The 6 months when they seemed unstoppable, when American forces were retreating everywhere, when the Pacific looked like it might become a Japanese lake forever. And why the decisions Japan made during those 6 months guaranteed their ultimate destruction. Because Japan didn't just win battles in early 1942. They won so decisively, so completely, that they convinced themselves they were invincible. And that delusion killed them. December 7th, 1941. While Pearl Harbor burns, Japan launches simultaneous attacks across the entire Pacific. This isn't just one operation, it's a coordinated offensive on a scale never seen before. Multiple invasions, multiple airstrikes, multiple naval operations, all happening at once. Within hours of Pearl Harbor, Japanese aircraft hit American airfields in the Philippines. General Douglas MacArthur commands forces there. He's received warning that Pearl Harbor was attacked. He knows war has started. He has hours to prepare. And somehow, he still gets caught with aircraft on the ground. Japanese bombers destroy over half of MacArthur's air force while planes sit parked on runways. The same mistake as Pearl Harbor. Repeated. Same day. Different location. Why? Because nobody believed Japan could hit the Philippines so fast. Pearl Harbor was supposed to be the main attack. The Philippines were supposed to have time to prepare. Wrong. Japanese forces also strike British Malaya, Thailand, Guam, Wake Island, Hong Kong, all on December 7th and 8th. Everywhere at once. It's overwhelming. Allied forces are scattered, unprepared, reacting instead of acting, and Japan has the initiative. At Wake Island, a tiny U.S. Marine garrison fights back heroically. When Japanese forces demand surrender, the Marine commander sends back a message that becomes legendary: "Send us more Japs." The Marines hold out for 2 weeks, sink 2 Japanese destroyers, damage several other ships, but eventually they're overwhelmed. Wake falls. The garrison is captured. Guam falls even faster. Small garrison. No hope of relief. Surrender is the only option. Hong Kong holds out longer, but the outcome is inevitable. Japanese forces surround the city, cut it off, pound it with artillery. By Christmas Day, Hong Kong surrenders. British Empire humiliated. Within 72 hours of Pearl Harbor, Japan has launched operations across 5,000 miles of ocean, and they're winning everywhere. The Philippines is America's major base in the Western Pacific. Tens of thousands of American and Filipino troops. Modern aircraft, naval facilities. It's supposed to hold out for months, long enough for the Pacific Fleet to recover and send relief. That's the plan. The plan falls apart immediately. Japanese aircraft destroy American air power on the first day. Without air cover, the naval base at Cavite becomes indefensible. Without naval support, the ground forces are isolated. Japan lands invasion forces on Luzon, the main island. They advance rapidly. MacArthur's forces fall back. MacArthur realizes Manila, the capital, can't be held. He declares it an open city to prevent destruction. Japanese forces occupy Manila on January 2nd, 1942, less than a month after Pearl Harbor. American and Filipino forces retreat to the Bataan Peninsula, a mountainous, jungle-covered position that's easier to defend. The plan is to hold Bataan until relief arrives, but relief isn't coming. The Pacific Fleet is crippled. No carriers available for a relief operation into Japanese-controlled waters. No battleships. No way to break through. Bataan is on its own. The defenders dig in. They have limited food, limited ammunition, limited medical supplies. Malaria and dysentery spread through the troops. Men are starving, but they hold. Week after week, month after month. Bataan becomes a symbol of American resistance. Heroic, doomed, but still fighting. MacArthur is ordered to evacuate to Australia. He doesn't want to leave his men, but President Roosevelt insists. America needs MacArthur alive to rebuild forces and eventually counterattack. On March 11th, MacArthur leaves Bataan by PT boat. His famous words, "I shall return." His men stay behind. They keep fighting. But by April, it's over. 76,000 troops surrender on Bataan, the largest surrender in American military history. Japanese forces march them 65 miles to prison camps. No food, no water. Anyone who falls is bayoneted or shot. Thousands die. It becomes known as the Bataan Death March, one of the worst atrocities of the war. The island fortress of Corregidor holds out until May. Then it too surrenders. The Philippines are gone. America's major Western Pacific base is in Japanese hands, and the troops who defended it are dead, captured, or scattered in the jungle. While the Philippines falls, Japan attacks British Malaya. This is supposed to be impossible. Malaya is covered in dense jungle, mountains, swamps, terrible terrain for an invasion. The British think it's undefendable from the land side. All defenses face the sea. That's where any attack would come from. Japan attacks from the land, through the jungle, on bicycles. Japanese troops use thousands of bicycles to move rapidly through jungle trails the British thought were impassable. They advance faster than anyone imagined. British forces retreat, fall back, retreat again. The Japanese keep coming. At the southern tip of Malaya sits Singapore, the Gibraltar of the East. Massive fortifications, huge naval guns, a garrison of 85,000 British, Australian, and Indian troops. It's supposed to be impregnable. I'm the fortress that would stop any Japanese advance. Churchill calls it the cornerstone of British defense in the Pacific. But Singapore's defenses all face the sea. The giant naval guns are fixed. They can't turn around to fire at land targets. When Japanese forces approach from Malaya, from the jungle, those guns are useless. Singapore is a fortress designed to stop a naval attack, not a land invasion. Japanese forces reach the causeway connecting Malaya to Singapore Island in late January. They're outnumbered. Singapore's garrison is larger than the entire Japanese invasion force. But numbers don't matter. The British are demoralized, poorly led, confused. The Japanese are confident, aggressive, well-coordinated. Japan attacks across the strait on February 8th. They land, establish a beachhead, push inland. British forces retreat into Singapore City. Water supplies are cut. The city is shelled. Civilians are dying. On February 15th, after just 1 week of fighting, Singapore surrenders. 85,000 troops, the largest surrender in British military history. Churchill calls it the worst disaster in British military history. The impregnable fortress fell in 7 days, and with it, British prestige in Asia collapses. The myth of European invincibility is shattered. If Singapore can fall, anything can fall. This is what the whole war is about. The Dutch East Indies, modern Indonesia, oil fields, rubber plantations, tin mines, rice paddies, everything Japan needs to sustain their military and economy. This is why they attacked Pearl Harbor, to clear the path to seize these resources. And now the path is clear. The Pacific Fleet is crippled. British forces are collapsing in Malaya. The Dutch colonial forces in the Indies are small, poorly equipped, no hope of reinforcement. Japan moves in for the kill. Japanese forces invade from multiple directions. Borneo, Celebes, Sumatra, Java, island hopping, leapfrogging, moving so fast that defenders can't coordinate. Small Dutch naval forces try to stop the invasion. They're annihilated. The Battle of the Java Sea in late February is a disaster. 5 Allied cruisers and destroyers sunk. Japanese control the seas. Without naval support, the islands can't be defended. One by one, they fall. By March, it's over. The entire Dutch East Indies is in Japanese hands. 450 years of Dutch colonial rule ended in 3 months, and Japan has the resources they went to war for. The oil fields are theirs. The rubber is theirs. The tin is theirs. Japan's empire now stretches from Burma to New Guinea, from the Aleutian Islands to the Dutch East Indies. Millions of square miles, tens of millions of people. The resources to fight for years. Everything Yamamoto's plan promised, and it only took 3 months to achieve. While the Pacific Islands fall, Japan also pushes west into Burma. Why? To cut off China. China has been fighting Japan since 1937, 5 years of brutal warfare. China is surviving on supplies coming through Burma via the Burma Road, a supply line from British India through Burma to China. If Japan cuts that road, China is isolated, might collapse. Japanese forces invade Burma in January 1942. British and Indian troops try to hold. They can't. Japanese forces advance rapidly. Rangoon falls in March. British forces retreat north. Fighting every step, suffering in the tropical heat, monsoons, disease, but they keep retreating. By May, British forces evacuate Burma entirely. They withdraw to India. The Burma Road is cut. China is isolated. Chinese forces are now completely dependent on supplies flown over the Himalayas. The famous hump airlift. Dangerous, expensive, inadequate. But it's all China has. Burma's fall also threatens India. If Japan invades India, the entire British position in Asia collapses. The jewel of the British Empire could fall to Japan. British forces dig in on the Indian border. prepare for the worst. But Japan doesn't invade India, not yet. They're overextended, need to consolidate, digest their conquests. While everyone focuses on the Philippines and Singapore, Japan is also seizing dozens of other locations. Islands, ports, bases, each one extending their defensive perimeter, each one giving them more control. Rabaul in New Britain, January 23rd. Small Australian garrison, overwhelmed in hours. Rabaul becomes Japan's major base in the South Pacific. Airfields, naval facilities, thousands of troops, a fortress, the Bismarck Archipelago, the Solomons, New Guinea. Japanese forces spread across the Southwest Pacific, getting closer to Australia, threatening Allied supply lines, the Gilberts, the Marshalls. Japanese mandated islands become fortified bases, every island a potential threat. In the north, Japan occupies Attu and Kiska in the Aleutian Islands, American territory. As the only part of the United States occupied by enemy forces during the war, it's a sideshow, not strategically important, but psychologically devastating. Japanese forces are on American soil. By June 1942, Japan controls the largest empire in their history, larger than they ever imagined, larger than they planned for. And that's becoming a problem, because conquering territory is one thing, holding it is another. Here's the critical question: why didn't Japan stop? By June 1942, they've achieved everything. They have the oil, the rubber, the resources. They have a defensive perimeter of fortified islands. They've beaten America, Britain, and Holland. They've exceeded every objective. The smart move is to stop, consolidate, dig in, make every island a fortress, force America to fight a brutal, costly campaign to take it all back, negotiate from a position of strength. This was Yamamoto's original plan: win big early, then negotiate peace. But Japan's army and navy can't stop. They're winning. They're unstoppable. They've faced minimal resistance. Allied forces are retreating everywhere. Why stop now when momentum is on their side? The army wants to push into India, cut off China completely, maybe even threaten the Soviet Union from the south. The Navy wants to push further into the Pacific, take Midway, take Hawaii eventually, destroy the American carriers that escaped Pearl Harbor. Japanese military culture doesn't have a concept of enough. Victory breeds more aggression, more attacks, more expansion. The idea of consolidating gains and defending seems passive, weak. Japanese warrior spirit demands offensive action. There's also a practical problem. Japanese military planning assumed quick victory would force American negotiations, but America isn't negotiating. America is mobilizing, building ships, training troops, preparing for total war. The longer Japan waits, the stronger America becomes, so Japanese commanders convince themselves they need to keep attacking, keep expanding, keep putting pressure on America before American industrial power becomes overwhelming. Hit Midway, destroy the American carriers, then America will have to negotiate. That's the logic. It's the same logic that led to Pearl Harbor, and it's about to produce the same result. Catastrophic miscalculation. Japan's conquests in early 1942 contain the seeds of their own destruction. First problem: overextension. Their empire is too large, too spread out. They don't have enough ships to protect supply lines. Don't have enough troops to garrison every island. Don't have enough aircraft to defend every base. Second problem: they're making enemies faster than they can defeat them. China is still fighting. Burma resistance continues. Filipino guerrillas are forming in the mountains. Local populations in occupied territories hate Japanese occupation. Brutal treatment, forced labor, massacres. Japan is creating resistance everywhere. Third problem: resources. Yes, they captured the oil fields, but they need to transport that oil to Japan. Through sea lanes, American submarines are starting to prowl. They captured rubber and tin and rice, but they need ships to move it. Ships that are increasingly vulnerable. Fourth problem: American carriers. Enterprise, Lexington, Yorktown, Hornet. But they survived Pearl Harbor. They're conducting hit-and-run raids on Japanese bases, keeping Japanese forces off balance, and Japan can't find them to destroy them. Fifth problem: American industrial power is waking up. Shipyards are launching new vessels. Aircraft factories are running 3 shifts. Training camps are producing new pilots, sailors, and soldiers. America is mobilizing for total war, and that mobilization is unstoppable. Japan has 6 months head start, 6 months of victories, but those victories came easy, against unprepared, surprised, demoralized opponents. The next phase will be different. America is ready now, angry, determined, and getting stronger every day. By June 1942, Japan has conquered half of Asia and the Western Pacific. From the outside, it looks unstoppable. Newsreels show Japanese victories. Maps show the expanding empire. Allied forces are retreating everywhere. Japan seems invincible, but cracks are appearing. The Doolittle raid in April shocks Japan. American bombers hit Tokyo. It's mostly symbolic. Minimal damage, but psychologically devastating. If American bombers can reach Tokyo, Japan isn't safe. The homeland is vulnerable. Japanese military leadership decides they need to destroy American carrier power permanently. No more hit-and-run raids. No more uncertainty. They plan a massive operation to seize Midway Island and lure the American carriers into a decisive battle. Destroy them all. Then the Pacific truly becomes a Japanese lake. It's a sound plan, on paper, but it rests on assumptions. That American intelligence won't discover the plan. That American carriers will fall into the trap. That Japanese superiority will carry the day like it has for 6 months. Those assumptions are about to be tested at a tiny island called Midway, in the most important naval battle of the Pacific War. The battle that will determine whether Japan's conquests become permanent or whether America starts the long road to victory. The next video covers the Battle of Midway in complete detail. How American codebreakers cracked Japanese plans. How 3 American carriers faced 4 Japanese carriers. How 5 minutes changed the entire war. How Japan lost their best carriers, best pilots, and their aura of invincibility. Part 5 drops in 48 hours. If you've watched this far, you understand this isn't typical history content. This is the real story. The decisions, the mistakes, the human factors that determine who wins wars. This is part 4 of 15 covering the complete Pacific War. For the full story from Pearl Harbor to Japan's surrender, subscribe right now, because the next video reveals how America pulled off one of the greatest upsets in military history, and you don't want to miss it. Japan conquered half the Pacific in 6 months. They thought they were invincible. They were wrong, and Midway is where they learned that lesson, the hard way.